You know electric drum sets, and you probably also know synthesizers. Now we're gonna synthesize a fully playable drum set that you can play with an E-kit or just with MIDI, with velocity control and everything. So, previously made a video where I synthesized the whole metal band, so guitars, bass and drums, but I wanted to have a more natural sounding kit with elegant sound design in the synth processing only, and not this heavy ass kit with processing chains straight out of hell. So I did that. By the way, I use Ableton and FaceBlend, but you can use whatever you want. There's always a way if you try hard enough. And now we're gonna dive right in. As discussed in the last video, kick, take a low sine wave, pitch automate that. Just like that, you have the bass of a kick of the bass of the kick. Now let's take the sound you want to emulate and just listen to the bass frequencies. If you have the raw stems or if you have a drum library, you can listen to all the individual mics. Great, if not, still not ungreat, still possible to do everything. Here in the cube we can see the fundamental is somewhere around here, so we adjust the sine wave accordingly. Around here in the lower mids there's still something missing, so I just took another sine wave which does the same thing, which is a little bit higher. Now some compression, distortion, yeah, adds a lot, and some reverb. Now let's turn the mids and highs back on and compare. What's missing? Some punch. So I took some noise, filtered some highs out, and cued it a little bit and ran it through the same compression, distortion and reverb to make it pop more. Not pop music, something different. Now let's focus on the room mics. You can hear we need that noisy rumble from the kick in the room. So I just took some noise, boosted the low end quite a bit, is an understatement, quite a lot would be more accurate here. Then some ring modulation to get the right timbre, and you know, on its own it sounds kind of whack, but with everything else, some reverb. And now the final touch, just some short white noise for the hiss that's missing. That's basically just the snare wires that bleeding in when the kick drum is hit, and then just some basic processing. And now the final product. Is it exactly the same? No. Is it close enough though? Arguably yes. Very important thing I would like to mention, everything I show is a very idealized, briefly summarized version of what the sound design process is really like. In reality it's a lot more comparing and trying out random stuff, and everything sucks and you start all over again, and then you turn some knob and suddenly everything sounds good and you don't know why, and then the program crashes and you haven't saved. So always keep in mind it's really a lot of tears and death wishes, but in the end, you know, if you just are deluded enough to think you can do it, and then you realize you straight up can't, and then you just don't stop and try random stuff until you have something somewhat good. I mean, who the fuck is completely satisfied with the end product, but being kind of close to satisfaction can be nice too, yeah, so just have some trust in the process. The snare, same process here. Listen to just the lows, add sine waves where they need to be, sprinkle some basic processing over it. Spot on. Now listen to the mid and highs. We need the clappiness for the happiness. So white noise, filter that so we just get the 1K area and run it through the same FX again. But now the typical snare wires are still missing. So some white noise again with a little bit longer decay, some distortion to get rid of the lows, and very high highs. And now last step, some reverb. Yeah man, that's perfect. That was the snare. Now on to the hi-hats. He noise. Short noise. Then just some, what is this? Comb filter. Get some metallic tonality in there. What we have here? Some EQ, transient shaper, reverb. Nothing too crazy. Distortion. Delay. Doesn't really do much. So you can pretty much see that I have no idea what I'm doing. I just threw random shit on and hoped for the best. This is maybe interesting here, this filter, 1K each here. But that were only the closed sides, what about the open ones? I failed, I couldn't do it. I tried with face modulation and it sucked hard, and then after the 5th attempt I gave up, and then Yeah, I didn't want to defile my nice drum kit with some shitty open heads. Also, since I didn't want to take an eternity on this project here, I just decided to leave it at that. Just kick, snare, hi-hat, most basic drum kit. But if you want to know more, I encourage you to watch my metal music synthesis video. Also sound designed cymbals and toms there. But what I didn't do there is velocity control. You know, when I hit the drum hard versus soft, you get a different sound, not only volume wise but also timbre wise. So how did I achieve that? So how did I emulate this? Most basic stuff first. Just some volume automation. Then a transient shaper to get rid of some attack and release at lower velocities. After that, I tweaked all different components of the sound individually. For instance, the roomy sound of the kick comes in only at higher velocities, or the transient of the snare. Basically, also very important. The last step is to forgot the last step, sorry, but very important last step is to automate the reverb to the velocity to emulate room mics, basically, you know, when you have the room. So just compare the original real drums with your synthesized drums at different velocities and tweak accordingly. And how do we now turn that into a playable drum set? This could vary from DAW to DAW, so I just enabled and did I just made an instrument rack with different chains, and then each chain adjusted the note range so that so if I play this note, just this sound plays. Also through a note length in front of each faceplate instance, since the MIDI notes that come out of a drum set are pretty short and I didn't want my sounds to be chopped off, but I'm sure there are other ways to do the exact same thing. For the people who don't suck at sounds and manage to make an open head, I found out if you throw an envelope follower on the closing head sound here and map that to the note length which is in front of the faceplate instant of the open hi-hat, it chokes the open hi-hat whenever you close it. But I didn't use that because I suck. At the end I just threw some processing on, some compression, some reverb, this snare bass plugin which is free, which just adds snare bass, adds, as the name suggests. So the moment we've all been waiting for, playing the drums we made, or I made, to scientifically correct, and all the basement presets are in the description, free download, as well as the samples from the preset. And now I'm gonna jam a bit.